Today, I'm going to be ranking all the different weapons in Valorant, all the way from the Operator down to the Ghost. And we're going to be taking a look at which ones are the best and which ones are just not that good. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe for more tips and tricks videos like this. And I do stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's a link down below in the description if you want to come check it out. Trust me, they're the most entertaining streams you'll ever watch. So we have a total of 6 categories. We have God Weapon Broken, which is essentially anything that is completely busted and needs a nerf right now. Then we have the S tier, which is, is pretty damn good, but it's not, OP broken, right, please fix this. And then we have Practical, which is, your standard AR that's solid, does the job, and can work. And then we have Eco Viable, which is, on an Eco round where you lose him, you maybe need, to save the Eco for the next round. It can do the job here and there. And then we have Just Y, which is a weapon you want to stay clear from at pretty much every point in the game. You never want to pick it up. And then we have Big Yikes, which is also just... Why? Why was this ever a thing? And yeah, so and I'm going to be ranking them in terms of just how fun I found them, how good they are to use, what they kind of change in terms of the meta. And it is my personal opinion, so remember, if you disagree or agree, let me know down below in the comments below. If this video does get to 5k likes, I'll make another tier list. We'll do the agents in Valorant, and I'll post that as soon as it hits that. Anyways, first off, we have the Bucky. And the Bucky used to be extremely good. It had the left click and the right click feature where you can essentially left click and you do long range damage. Right click is for closer range damage. It tightens and increases the spread of the weapon to suit it to the different ranges. It used to be pretty good, but it did get a nerf, I believe, and now it just really doesn't hit the mark at all. It's quite a cheap weapon, but it virtually does no damage for a shotgun. Just isn't the best weapon to use at all in many situations. So I'm gonna have to put this one in a Just Y, to be honest with you. I think it's a weapon you don't really want to be touching ever. And next up we have the Enquiries, which is an LMG. We're starting off with a few weapons that aren't the best, to be honest with you. It's an LMG. It's a cheap LMG. It can laser people in some situations, but it's not the best in every situation. Compare it to other weapons. It's kind of like a Just Y weapon. Why would you pick this over something else that you can easily pick for cheaper or spend a little bit more on? So the Enquiries for me, compared to a weapon like the Odin, it just doesn't hit the mark at all and isn't really eco-viable either. Not big yikes, but it ain't hitting the mark there. Okay, then we have the Bulldog, and wow, what a weapon this is. Usually before this technique that I'm about to show you was found out, I would probably say that the Bulldog was a mediocre weapon. It was kind of underrated, but it wasn't the greatest. It was definitely practical or eco-viable, I'd say. But now, with this technique that has been found, it practically turns it into a machine gun laser, which is why I'm going to have to put it in the God Weapon Broken. I do expect this to get patched too. I'm not sure whether it's intended, but I think it's going to get patched, which is why it's in the God Weapon Broken tier. And to be honest with you, if you're not using this technique and you're not using a Bulldog, it is insanely good. Next up, we're moving on to another weapon that is very tasty. The Classic. The Classic has the left click, which is decent. It's a completely free weapon. You get it as a starter weapon. And it also has the right click, which fires about 3 bullets, I believe, and does a lot of damage in a tight spread. And this right click is extremely good, and it's a free weapon. I'm gonna be honest with you, I do think it's probably an S tier weapon or a God Weapon Broken, just because the Classic is way too good to be free. It's a completely free weapon. Is it broken like the Bulldog? Probably not. The Bulldog's really fun to use. The Classic isn't the most entertaining weapon to use. It's satisfying for sure. I think I'm gonna have to put it in the God Weapon Broken tier. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's just a very fun weapon to use, and for it being free, it's too good. It's too good. And now we have the Frenzy. The Frenzy is an interesting weapon. The Frenzy used to be extremely good before it got nerfed. It was like a laser weapon. It was practically the only weapon you could use on an eco round. I'm not gonna lie. It did take a nerf. It's still pretty good now in certain situations, and it does the job, which is why I'm gonna have to put it in practical, because it gets the job done. It can work if you're going for the close range spray and you need the SMG. It's a fun weapon to use for sure, but it's definitely not pre-nerf, which would probably go in broken or S tier, to be honest with you. And then we have the Ghost. Now, the Ghost is an interesting one for me. The Ghost is a very inconsistent weapon. Its one taps can be satisfying and nice to use, but most of the time, it's not always going to land, and people don't really know how to use it in certain situations. Often I see people, like, tapping the trigger finger so many times, so it's kind of more like a tap, tap, tap weapon. So, I think for this one, it's definitely a practical weapon. The Ghost is good, so I think it has to go in practical. You know, I don't think it's an eco-viable. I think it's a practical weapon for sure. And I do think it, you know, does the job in certain situations, but it's kind of mixed around between the two, I'm not going to lie. Then we have the Guardian, and the Guardian can be a really, really good weapon if you're accurate with your shots, which most people aren't, I'm not going to lie. It's expensive, not too expensive though. It's not the greatest weapon in the world. To be honest with you, I wouldn't say, you know, I'd go for it and like it. If it's there on the ground and you've got no weapon, it's something that you'd like to pick up, which is kind of the eco-viable category, you know? Either you're on an eco round or you've got no weapon and you see it on the ground and you think, you know what, I'll pick it up, why not? You know, it's not something you want to completely avoid, but it's better than nothing, I'm not going to lie. Which is why I'd probably have to put it in eco-viable. I think it's a great weapon in certain situations, but it's not the best in, you know... It's kind of useful, at the same time it's kind of not. It's alright, and at the end of the day, it does its job, but it's, you know, something you want to move on from quickly, sooner rather than later. And then we have the Judge. My oh my, what a weapon this is. The Judge is an extremely OP weapon. I'm surprised it hasn't been nerfed a bit more than it has already. So, it's a tough one for me. It is a tough one for me. I think I'm going to have to put this one in the God Weapon Broken tier, you know? If the Judge isn't in the God Weapon Broken tier, is that tier really correct? Because the Judge is a weapon that lasers people. It's automatic, it does a lot of damage, and it has a lot of rounds in its magazine. It's a fantastic shotgun to use, and it's the main one to go to. Now we have the Marshal. Now the Marshal, for me, is an interesting one. It's a very, very cheap weapon, and it's extremely, extremely good. It's a sniper, it's quite quick firing, the hip fire accuracy on it is really, really, really good. And that's a big factor for me, you know? Having a weapon that accurate for that cheap. On an eco round as well, it's very, very good too. And it's very, very accurate in a lot of situations, which is why it's going to have to be an S tier weapon. It's so cheap for how accurate it is and how much damage it will deal compared to the Operator, for example. And, you know, that for me is definitely an S tier weapon. Now we have the Odin. The Odin's a very, very interesting one. The Odin's kind of a very annoying weapon. It's an unenjoyable experience when you play against it. It's a massive magazine, does a lot of damage, can very easily wallbang people, and it's very annoying to play against, but when you're using it, it's also very, very OP, which is why I'm kind of trying to figure out whether it's worth it in terms of how much you enjoy it when you're using it, and whether it's worth it when you get it used against you, and it's a pretty unfortunate experience. So I think it's going to have to be a practical weapon. I'm not sure if the Odin's completely busted like the Judge, but it's definitely practical. It definitely does its job, and definitely could be an S tier potentially, yeah. Then next up we have the Operator. Now the Operator is a one-shot weapon, 5 bullets in its magazine. Very expensive weapon, but it did get changed from 5,000 to 4,700, which is interesting because that makes things very, very different in terms of the economy. Before it, I might put it in practical just because it was a little more expensive. But now, it's such a strong weapon in general. It's reliable, it's solid, but it's also very, very good too. Not completely broken, but it's definitely an S tier sniper because it's going to get your job done, and it's also going to laser people. And when you combine it with an operator like Jett, for example, or an agent like Jett, it's going to be extremely good to use in a lot of situations. And on the maps like Breeze and Icebox, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get longer maps too. I think I'm going to have to keep it in the S tier just because of the maps that we play right now, and the current meta is definitely in there. Now the next one is a little bit of a controversial one. we have the Phantom. The Phantom has, you know, tracers, it has a suppressor on it, it's got 30 bullets in its magazine, very easy to control recoil, fantastic spray transfer, to be honest with you. Overall, a very, very reliable AR. Whether it's practical or S tier, that's up for debate, to be honest with you, but it's a very satisfying weapon to use, it's very fun to use, and it does the job 100%. Which is why I think I'm going to have to put it in the S tier, because the Phantom in the S tier is where it belongs. It's, you know, probably one of the best ARs out there, in my opinion. When we get onto the Vandal, it's going to be very interesting, because when you compare this to the Vandal, it depends what you view in a weapon. Whether you're viewing off enjoyment or whether you're viewing off how good it is, which is an interesting factor to take into account. But yeah, the Phantom, S tier, 100%. Now, the Sheriff. The Sheriff is a little bit of a one-tap deagle kind of weapon. It's, you know, a very fun weapon to use, and when you hit those headshots, it is extremely, extremely satisfying. Like, beyond belief, and that's why I think I'm going to have to bump this one up to the S tier, because the Sheriff is a very, very satisfying weapon to use. It's, you know, very reliable in terms of when you use it on an eco round or having it in your back pocket. There are a lot of clips that have gone completely viral because of it, just because of how fun it is to use, how satisfying it is to use, and the kind of clips you can hit with a one deagle, one shot to the headshot type of weapon. That's where it comes into play here. Now, next up, we have the Shorty, which is interesting because the Shorty is a weapon you never really want to use on an eco round because of how close range it is. I think I'd have to put it in eco viable. And now we have the Spectre. Ooh, this one is run and gun meta confirmed, which is why I'm going to have to put it in that practical tier for me, to be honest with you. And it's, you know, it's a weapon you can rely on. The Stinger is, it has been buffed quite a bit. It's a very, very strong weapon to use, and if the Spectre is going to be in the practical tier, this one is going to have to compete for it, because the Stinger is like a rapid-fire weapon. It's probably better than the Spectre because of the cost. It's 950. When you put that technique on, it goes to practical. Otherwise, it's either a just Y weapon or an eco-viable weapon, because it's not a great weapon at all when you think about it and when you're not going to be using it with the technique. But aside from that, when you do, it bumps it up a massive, massive amount. Oh, now we have the Vandal. You know, kind of the one-tap weapon, the three-tap weapon. Aside from that, the weapon is satisfying. It does a lot of damage. You won't be getting any 140s with this weapon. You'll get, you know, kind of the heavy AR type 150 damage at long range, and it's a reliable weapon in that front. So I think it's S tier. Now, this depends on what you're looking for. For me, I get more enjoyment out of a weapon like the Phantom. However, the Vandal is a satisfying weapon to use. It looks nice in clips, which is why I'm going to have to put it in the S tier, because when you take into the account the satisfaction from those one-taps, the consistency in the 150 range, you know, how satisfying it is to hit a clip with it, which is why it gets that S tier, because it's a fun weapon, an enjoyable weapon to use, which is why the S tier is where it belongs. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be my tier list. I think I did a pretty good job. Of course, mainly comes down to personal preference, but I think we definitely touched on the areas where they should belong. And of course, if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like rating down below and subscribe. And if you want to see me rank the agents, 5k likes and we will make it happen indeed. And of course, I do stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Link down below in the description if you want to check out some of the most entertaining Valorant streams you'll ever watch. And click on the video on your screen right now if you want to catch 10 of the best crosshairs in Valorant. I'll catch you later.